Well, the sign on the wall says it all if you're curious about what we're going to be working on. Plus, we've got that black 69 GTO that we're going to be tinkering on. The task at hand for today is going to be some restoration, rejuvenation, and even a simple repair, all in the efforts of building one cool ride. When our GTO rolled off the assembly line, this old thing was quite a peach, and it came with quite a few options. However, it's got one that if we were buying this thing, we would have clicked a total different box. What we wanted would have to be a 4-speed. Having the thrill of a manual shift, y'all know what I'm talking about. The ability to dump the clutch, run through the gears, well, that'll definitely put a smile on your face. This thing now is going to have a 5-speed in it, and we need to make it work. It's going to take a few components and a bit of work, but it's going to be all worth it in the end. Now, we're going to have to do quite a bit of disassembly to make all this stuff work. We're going to be adding that third pedal over here, so that means the column, this little dash piece, and the bracket up under here all needs to come out. You know what's great about working on an old car like this? Pretty good chance you won't lose your 10mm. I'm not gonna lie, this seems like one of those jobs that when I get done, probably gonna have to go to the chiropractor. I'm sitting here looking at this thing. Well, that's good that that piece come off. Let's keep going. This is the easy part-ish. Getting all these loose. That's kind of disturbing. The wire's been chewed on a bit. We'll have to see what that goes to. Try not to pay any attention to the weird and awkward sounds that I make. It's kind of one of them situations that when you get home at the end of the day and the wife asks, "So how'd your day go?" You're supposed to say, "Oh, it's great. It went wonderful." As dusty as this old car is, I bet this thing was on a dirt road, as that old country song says. Got it. I bet you there's gonna be another bolt hiding out up here. Nope, there's a bolt right up top. It's my first day, guys. Don't judge me. Oh, look at there. Get all the bolts out of it and they come right out. You'd never guess it. Oh, that's the way it's supposed to work. Except where I should have unplugged that switch. Oop, let's pull it out of there. There we go. Score. Now we need to install our hydraulic clutch assembly that we got from American Powertrain. Now this install is pretty much straightforward. We're going to have to remove this bolt to slide out our brake pedal. Now we've got to swap out the original one because it's a lot wider than what this car should have in it, with it being a standard shift. That's because this one needs some extra room for that third pedal. So what we wound up doing is ordering a standard set of replacement pedals to put in here. We're only going to be using the brake pedal, of course. Now I've seen some guys cut these things down, and I guess that might work, but that's just, let's say, you know, time is money, and that is a cheaper route to go. You could use a factory set if you can find them, but you got to think about finding one of these old cars out of the late 60s, early 70s, still sitting in the salvage yard is really and truthfully kind of unheard of. Now, the first thing we got to do is zip this thing out. So we got to make a little noise. You know, also sitting here looking at this thing, that the clutch pedal on this one is what holds everything together. With this setup, we're gonna have to find us a bolt. Luckily, it comes with the new bushings, so we can put them in there. And then, need to measure, go find a bolt that's that much longer than this one. Now, I like to put a little bit of dielectric grease on these things, kind of as good measure to keep them from squeaking. It isn't required, but it's just preventive. Put this, that's it. Oh yeah, like a glove. This is actually pretty simple. May not have had to take that bracket out, but I bet it wouldn't have been that smooth. Remember, you don't want to cinch that thing down crazy, because if you do, you'll bind up your brake pedal. Push that one out. Man. Oh yeah, way better. I'll just tighten this little one up. Simple, you just stab it through them 4 holes. And then squish your wires. There's 2. Hope I'm making this look graceful. I wonder if I can get an appointment for this afternoon at the chiropractor. Oh, look at that. There's that one. Yep. It's kind of funny. You kind of like see where it needs to go, but that's about all you can do. The next thing that we're needing to do is find our location for our reservoir. Now, a lot of times people get kind of ahead of themselves and just slap this thing on the firewall and move forward. Problem with that is you can run into some interference problems. We're wanting to mock up our brake booster here and get it into place. That way we don't have that interference. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind is you have a hood hinge that runs through here, and them things, when they're collapsed, are relatively bulky. Just make sure that you don't have that kind of problem, because you don't want to screw and glue a bunch of stuff to your firewall, modifying it or even scratching it up, and then later having to move things around. It's just a waste of effort. All we got to do is just slap this thing into place. You don't have to have all the bolts and the brackets and stuff hooked up, but you do want it pretty close to where it would live normally. It takes a few extra minutes, but is a whole lot more efficient than doing things 2 or 3 times. It needs to be against the firewall. Looks like we really could put this thing over here. Our hose is going to limit us some, so you also want to mount this thing where it's accessible. If you were to put it in a location that makes it a pain to reach or a pain to check, that too just makes it like not the greatest idea. So just trying to figure out what works best for you in your situation. try to make the best decision you can. I really think I want to mount it there. I'm really only going to mark one of these right now because I can't get in there because this thing's in the way. Let's get that off. Then we can dial it in to perfection. Come on there. All right. Put that on there so I don't lose it. Whew, can't back up now. Yeah, I think I could use a ratchet with a little more leverage on it. Now, using this method of putting a screw in, you probably could have put it up there and marked it and been fine on both sides. I like doing it this way because it gives you an opportunity to basically mount it, step back and make sure that you like it. Make sure that it's not sitting off to one side or the other. It looks pretty good there. If you were to mark both holes, drill them, and then you were off just a little bit, y'all know what that means. More modifying, more time. Doing it this way just helps you to be a bit more accurate. And for those of you who are asking, I'm using the highest quality stainless steel tech screws that they make. Torque that to correct spec. Put our hose on there. Heck yeah. Once everything's the point where it's going to live, now you got to bleed the system. The way I'm going to do this is a little bit odd than what most people would do. I'm actually going to do it backwards. I'm going to put a vacuum source up here, and then I'm going to draw fluid out of this cup where our hose is going to be submerged into, instead of trying to bleed it by pumping the pedal a bunch of times. And this way is actually a little bit easier. You got to make sure that the bleeder is open. Even more so, make sure you got the right wrench. It's my first day. Let's see. Put quite a bit of brake fluid in here. It's a lot easier to put it in here now once it's in there. Both of these being, let's call it a sterile cup. We can pour some of that back in there if we wind up not using it. Should have put on some gloves though. Yes, sir. Now with this little vacuum kit that we've got, it has a tube that you can put on the cap and onto your reservoir. This is pretty handy so that whenever you go to start using this, there will be some fluid get in here, and then as you start letting the air out, you'll see the bubbles come through there. Put a couple connections here with a hose, like that. Now get to pumping. Pump this thing up. Get some draw on it. Needle should start going down. Yep. Just heard a big air bubble go. Bloop. Another thing that you want to make sure that you don't do is don't let your little reservoir down there run out. Because if you do, it's just going to draw in air. If you'll notice that we got air bubbles coming out up here, gurgling out, that's what you want to see. Now, if I only had a paper towel. It may take a few cycles of doing it this way. What you want to keep an eye out for is to see any air bubbles come out up here into that clear hose. You'll end up doing it a couple times and don't really see anything, probably in pretty good shape. Now, one of the crucial points on this thing is you gotta put your finger over this hole. That way, this stuff doesn't run basically downhill. And then slap you in a plug. Now you can take your little hose out of the big container down here and tighten up your bleeder screw. If you didn't do this, like I said, all that fluid will run out. As long as you keep that in place, you're good to go. Get it. Now let's plug this dude into the bottom of our reservoir. Let's see if we got a pedal. Should feel some resistance on this thing, plus you should be able to hear the actuation of your pressure plate. Oh yeah, that thing's good to go. With our clutch hydraulics completed, now we're going to take care of a few other procedures on this old car. And I'm here to tell you that this thing is suffering from a serious condition, what I refer to as the aorta disease. Now hear me out. While we've got that steering column out, we ought to go ahead and remove our dash pad. This thing's all busted up and it needs to be replaced. And while that thing's out, we ought to go ahead and freshen up this steel dash because it's faded from the sun. And to do that properly, well, we ought to go ahead and remove the windshield. We were planning to do that also because it's scratched up. Once the windshield's out, well, we ought to go ahead and take care of these little studs that are missing on both sides that's broke off that hold the trim clips on. Whew, sure hope this patient survives. To get all this started, what we're going to do is cut out our windshield. And to do that, we're going to use a very primitive tool, what oftentimes people refer to as a pull knife. It's super simple. It's got a little blade on here and you hook it under the glass, and then it has this little T-handle that you get to pull and pull and pull on until your heart's content or the glass is out. Now also with this, there's a few things that you should keep in mind, and that's your safety. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about it because it's all boring, but just keep this stuff in mind and it may save you a quick trip to the ER. Use your pair of gloves because this thing has been known to pull through the windshield, and then you got glass and sharp edges everywhere. Trust me, I've been there. Also, you need a pair of safety glasses because that stuff, whenever it breaks, you know it splinters and goes everywhere. This is a cheap insurance to help keep some of it out. Now the process with this thing is pretty easy. You just take that blade, kind of shove it up under the glass, wiggle it around a little, then you can pull it. You don't want to put a crazy amount of pressure on it, but you do need some. Also be a little cautious, because if something was to if that blade was to break and your arm was to come out, that you don't get stitches on the back side of your elbow from hitting something sharp. This old windshield's been in here a long time, and this butyl kind of just molds out of the way. Now, luckily for us, we're really not trying to save this piece of glass. We can get a replacement one. So if we do bust it, it's not that big a deal. There's that half. Whew, a little lightheaded. With it cut all the way around, this thing should lift out relatively easy. To push on it, you don't want to use your fingers, kind of use the entire part of your hand. Apply some gentle pressure to it. That stuff is still sticky, but you'll notice that it starts to tear apart. As you do that, just keep applying that pressure, and you'll have this thing out the way before you know it. After a quick coffee break and letting the swelling go down on my forearms, it's time to remove all this goop from around the windshield. It's pretty simple task in theory, but this gummy stuff is a pain in the tail to get off. I've got a couple tips to use if you're going to be doing this. One is you can use a paint paddle and kind of grind off the edge into a blade, and then use a soapy solution kind of like this stuff. Now what it does is it helps to prevent everything from sticking to everything else. It's kind of a lubricant, if you will. Just literally spray everything on here, spray your board, and then just kind of push it off the surface. Now you'll notice sometimes you can get it kind of up and about. If you hold that pressure on it, it helps to roll it off a lot easier. Now pulling this rubber back, you guys can see how problems arise in these old cars. See all that rust? That's where moisture has got trapped under this rubber. That over periods of time creates rust holes, which cause drain holes, which causes spending of money, so on and so forth. So with this stuff here, we'll end up having to treat that to cut down on the corrosion, but we'll just get this black bubble gum off first. Ideally, doing it like this, you'll roll all the weather strip sealant off the surface. You don't really have much to come back and clean up. And stuff on this side is a lot more pliable, it seems like, than the driver's side. Another handy thing about using just a paint paddle is with it being wooden, you don't really have to worry about it scratching or gouging into the surface of the metal on the car. Once you're done with this thing, you don't have to clean the tool up. All you really got to do is throw it in the trash. Making some progress now. Well, to believe it or not, guys, I've never taken a dash pad off a 69 GTO. So we've got to do that so that we can replace this thing. And my procedure for doing this is pretty easy. We're going to keep removing hardware until this thing basically falls out. I know from in the past, there is screws and stuff or nuts usually on the back side up through here. So we'll have to pull all this out. Now up in this area, I don't really know because there's a bunch of gauges and stuff in the way. Can't be all that complicated. We're just gonna keep removing stuff. I don't know if it looks as awkward as it feels right now, but it feels pretty weird. Jeez, this is some of that screwing that's too easy to do with a tool and too hard to do without. Let's see here. Yeah. Like a glove. Cool. That's a plus. Little tip for you whenever you're taking stuff apart like this. If you're worried about some of the hardware, just simply put it back in to the clip or the hole that you removed it from. And that really speeds up the process whenever you're going back together. Man, them dudes are tight. That was a... Don't worry about it, camera guy. That'll buff. Oh yeah. don't want to break nothing, but I'm tired of monkeying with this thing too. Now that don't come out because that's not making blooming sense, fellers. This is going to be a huge undertaking. 100%. With the dash pad out of the way, now we really need to prepare for some painting. Now this piece up here is kind of exposed to a bunch of the vinyl protectants that a lot of times people use to make the dash shiny, which paint isn't friendly with. So I'm gonna clean this really, really well, scrub it down, then we'll probably still have some fish eyes, but I'm hoping we don't. Now to scratch this thing up, I'm just using a little red scuff pad. You don't ever get crazy with it. I'm just trying to knock off the shine. Once I get this done, I will come back and clean it once again, use an air blower, and I will also come in with a wire brush and dig out a bunch of this rusty stuff in this trench where the windshield goes. Once we get that, we can tape this thing down, paint her up. Now, this isn't crazy complicated, but we just, still want it to look good. I'd also suggest on this type of thing, the way you're scuffing this down, it's kind of go in just one direction. That way if it leaves any scratches or leaves a grain to it, it's all uniform. It's kind of one of those quick and dirty, you too can paint your dash at home. Well, our dash top turned out pretty nice, but it needs to sit back there and dry so that we can move on. So I'm going to get busy going ahead and taking out the rest of our dash pieces here and getting them cleaned up. Our factory dash pad really isn't all that bad, but it's nowhere near the caliber that we're looking for the type of car that we're building. We picked up a new unit from ABC Moparts. They offer components to fit many makes and models, Moparts, GMs, cars, and trucks. So if you're looking for a hard to find piece, you may give these guys a shout. You want to be extremely careful with this stuff. It's old and it's kind of delicate. You don't want to break or damage none of this stuff. You may want to do some inspecting on all this stuff to make sure that you don't have any wires that are chafed or been nicked during the removal or even in the installation from back in the day. Pay attention to how all this stuff comes out. Some of it has to be removed in almost a sequence. You don't want to force something out. In all reality, there was something else holding it in place, and then you damage both the parts. I'm really going to try to not unplug all of this stuff. I'm going to try to remove the components, so all I have to do is lay them back into the dash. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I've got to remove my headlight switch from here. And with a headlight switch, you always had the headlight knob. Now, I remember in my younger days, I went to snatching and pulling on it, trying to figure out how to get it apart because you got a knob, the shaft, and the bezel and all that stuff. And I basically damaged everything I was working with. The dash, the knob itself, the shaft, and the switch. And all I had to do was simply push a button and it would have came apart. So what you need to do to remove one of these is you pull the headlights all the way on, push the button on the back, then the knob comes off. It's that easy. If I would have known that back in the day, I would have saved this old hand some stitches. Shouldn't have done it that way. Cigarette lighter. That sounds kind of weird. But in these old cars with cigarette lighters, I'm always curious as if it's ever been used. Sometimes you get in a car and you know it's been used. You can smell. Hey, this one's broke. Missing half the stuff out of it. Go ahead and plug that back in there. Now just notice that this thing actually has a wire on it that looks like a wire, but it's really not. What I'm talking about is this little black cord here with the green lines on it. It punctures through this little twist in, and when that bulb comes on, it kind of soaks up that light and transfers it through here and emits it here inside of the ashtray. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now this bulb isn't on by any means. We're going to take it out just to even show you. It's soaking up the light through the room. If you'll take this piece out, you'll see what I mean. I put my finger over it, that light goes dark. Pull my finger off of it, it's back through it. It's kind of neat stuff. Perfect example of making sure something else that doesn't need to come off first before you go to pulling. You'd never guess you have to remove all the hardware. 69 GTO. Now it's gonna be funny too once I get this one out and it's still stuck. Maybe coming. Oh yeah. Just need to wiggle it. Serious snug fit. Well, we have all of our pieces cleaned up and we're ready to start moving on toward the next two final details before we start all the assembly. Now, a lot of times on your dashes, you'll run into having some silver accents around a lot of the bezels and knobs and so on. And our little old GTO is a perfect example of that. Now, a lot of folks oftentimes use some silver permanent markers and take them and kind of draw around here. But what you can run into is as you're applying it, whenever you have to reset and try it again, it seems like you're wiping off some that you just put on and you're almost like chasing your tail. Now, there's another way that you can do this, and you don't really need any special tools. You just really need some paint, a flat surface, some masking tape, and a steady hand. You want to make sure that your surface that you think is flat is actually flat, so a quick rub of your hands will probably tell you what you need to know. Put it on your edge and kind of pull it tight. Yikes. Try that again. What you'll want to do is take your paint, basically spray it onto the surface. Now what we're kind of simulating is almost like a printing press. Once that paint's wet, you want it nice and even as well. You'll take this piece and kind of lay it on there, mash it, and then lift it up. Now with that, as long as the surface is flat, it will transfer on here and you're in good shape. And remember, it's only gonna be as deep as the paint that you spray. So let's go ahead and get started. You want the paper to be nice and wet. And with silver, of course, that stuff will kind of start moving around on you. Another note, I think you get the highest with silver paint. See, check that out. Does that look nice? Now, I've been asked before how in the world I figured out some of these ways to do some stuff like this. And I tell them, well, whenever you're building cars on a budget, sometimes you have to figure out ways to rejuvenate old parts because you don't have money to buy the new ones. The second thing that we're going to take care of is our lens. Now, this thing is definitely the original piece that come in this old car, and it hasn't fared that well. You can look pretty close at this thing, and it either looks like they've scratched it all up or it has contaminants that's kind of latched onto the surface. Now, to clean this up, the first step we're going to do is use some foaming glass cleaner. With this, when you spray it on there, you'll notice that it kind of like bubbles up some, and what that's doing is taking any of like dirt and debris on there and lifting it off the surface. That helps to keep from scratching this thing up any further. Spray that on there, let it sit for a few seconds. You see them little bubbles doing their thing. I also like to fold up my paper towel. That way whenever you wipe across here, if it's got anything on it, you can kind of use the other side. It's nice and clean. You have a few wiping surfaces here. It's actually scratched up. So we got to go a step further. So what I'm going to use is just polishing compound and one of these microfibers. You don't need a lot of this stuff normally. Come on now. Just a dab or so. And also usually polish this stuff in one direction as well, not a bunch of swirling around and junk. Now you may have to do this process a couple of times, but it's very similar to kind of buffing out a scratch in your paint. You could potentially use a machine, like a drill attachment and that kind of thing, to speed up this process. And if you do that, you want to use a little bit of caution, because if that wheel was to grab a hold of one of these edges, you could bust what you're trying to fix. The way I'm doing it here, it's a little bit slower, well, a lot slower, but it's a bit safer. Well, I have to say that was about 5 minutes well spent. You can easily see the dramatic change between the two. And this piece here is probably somewhere between 50 and 100 bucks new. I'm gonna say I need to spend a few more minutes so I can save me a few more dollars.
Well, Tommy's still got a few things to finish up on the dash, so while he does that, I'm gonna go ahead and swap out our heater core for this new one that we got from Duralast. And there's a pretty good chance that that's the original heater core that was still in the car, because it's that old brass copper style. And with our firewall and our heater box and everything disassembled right now, this is the time to do it. Because really, it's gonna take 5 minutes, a couple screws, get this thing swapped out. That boy don't want to come off of there. Granted, it has been on here since 1969. Just about got her whooped though. Here's our old one. Sure enough, we've got some corrosion around the tube as well as a little hairline crack. So as luck would have it, as soon as we fired this thing up, this has been pouring coolant all over the floorboard. So go ahead and get this swapped out. Better be safe than sorry. All right, new heater core is installed. Looks like we are ready to throw this thing back up in here, seal everything up, call it a win. Stay. And now that I've got that installed, I'm gonna help Tommy finish slapping our components into our new dash so we can finally drop it into our '69 GTO.
Man, you're in a hurry. Hold on a second.
I'll let you lead.
You got those studs in there. It just basically slides right in there. So just make sure you don't have any wires that are hitting anything.
Got 2 studs in the car too.
One's bigger than the other one. Nope, don't be angry with it.
I'm not. Who's angry? Firm but gentle. When was the last time you got tangled up in the floorboard of a GTO?
Never with another man. I saved the screws so that we wouldn't lose them, and guess what? They MIA. Yay!
Them boys on the GM assembly line had this down to a science, I'm sure.
Quick question. Now with all that in place, can you plug up all the radio connections over there? Or do we need to pull it back out?
Yeah, I think we can make it happen. At least my skinny arms will make it through there. That's more of a dig on me than it is on you.
Awesome. Let me get you the lid. Well, we made some pretty decent progress for the day, but we didn't get nearly as far as we was hoping. The dash looks pretty spectacular, and we still got work to do from what I'd mentioned. You know, I want to get the windshield in. I got to repair that T-stud so I can put the clip on, put the trim on, but also I got to get this thing clean so we can get it back in. So all this stuff is just going to have to hold off until another day. Hope you guys like what you saw, and we still got a whole lot more to come.